Hello and welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, a brief poem by Dorothea McKellar. Statistics for the creature described will be published on the blog that accompanies the podcast. Dorothea McKellar is one of my favourite poets, and the reason why makes her useful for Ars Magica players. She was a young, rebellious Australian poetess who wanted to smash through the tradition of idealising Europe. Her best-known poem, My Country, was written when she was 19 and was a glove to the face of the literary establishment in Australia. Her habit of deconstructing European forms works beautifully for us, and here's an example. I'll pop in at the end with a little commentary. The following recording was released into the public domain by Thomas Peter through LibriVox. Thanks again to all of the gang at LibriVox.
The Witch Maid by Dorothea McKellar. I wandered in the woodland a morning in the spring. I found a glade I had not known, and saw an evil thing. I heard a wood dove calling, as one that loves and grieves. The sun was shining silver on the small bright leaves. Oh, it was very beautiful, the glade that I had found. I peeped between the slender stems, and there upon the ground a man was lying dead, and from the spear wound in his side the sluggish blood had ceased to flow, and yet had hardly dried. Oh, the shining of the leaves, the morning of the year! Oh, how could any die to-day, with life so young and dear? My feet were tied with horror, I could not turn to run. A light breeze tossed the branches, the shadow and the sun across the dead face shifted. It seemed to change and twitch, when from the trees beyond me stepped a white young witch. I prayed that I was hidden. She never turned her head, but picked her footsteps daintily and stooped beside the dead. She touched him with her hanging hair and stroked him with her hand, still gazing like a little child that does not understand, for she had strayed from Elfland where death has never come. She knew not why his side was torn, nor why his mouth was dumb. She sat her down beside him, and joined her finger-tips, and smiled a strange and secret smile that curved her thin red lips. She wore a veil of purple about her body sweet, and little silver sandals on her smooth, pale feet. Her black hair hung as straight as rain, and touched the dead man's eyes. He smiled at her in answer, a scornful smile and wise. She played with him a while as might a panther kitten play. Most horrible it was, and yet I could not look away. I needs must watch her motions, her cruel, supple grace, the delicate swift changes of her sharp-cut face, till suddenly she wearied, and rising from her knees, all in one lovely movement, like a sapling in the breeze, she gazed on him who would not play, with gathering surprise. The man she did not understand, though she was very wise. She drew her veil around her, her whiteness showing through, and gazed, and still unceasingly there came the wood-dove's coo. Oh, the stirring of the spring, the calling of the dove! Why does he lie so cold, when I am here to love? Her long, strange eyes were narrowed to threads of shining green. She touched the broken spear-point, the wound's red lips between. She touched it with her careless foot, and yet he did not stir. Dull fool that lay with open eyes, and would not look at her. She turned away in anger, and raised her arms on high, her straight white arms that questioned the pure, pale sky. The thousand slender tree stems soon hid the way she went, as they who hold a secret, and therewith are content. The dead man smiled in silence. A strange thought in me said, if I had heard her speak at all, then I too should be dead. Her voice, what would her voice be? And then I fled, afraid, the spell was loosed that bound me to the evil glade. Oh, the flowers and the grass, the wood dove in the tree, from magic and from sudden death, good Lord, deliver me.
Notice the change in the middle of the poem. The elf maid is an innocent who does not understand death, and then you discover she's a cat-like predator playing with her victim. It's this sort of twist that I love in McKellar's work. She takes romantic sentimentalism from Europe and then smacks it with the harshness of the Australian environment. Statistics for this creature will be found on the blog that accompanies the podcast. Your saga may vary.